job for you. I'm sure your master, God rest his soul, would have had the job done by now." With this last sentence, the innkeeper had got to the heart of the problem. And it was his problem, not mine. John Gregory, the spook who had trained me, had died the previous year. He had been fighting to help destroy the fiend, the devil himself and ruler of the dark, who threatened to bring an age of tyranny and fear to the world. As his apprentice, I had now inherited his role and was operating as the Chippenden spook. But, in truth, I hadn't really completed my apprenticeship and was young to be plying my trade alone like this. Over the months I'd spent working alone, I'd met quite a few people who shared this attitude. I'd learned that it was important to set them right from the outset. They had to understand that they were not dealing with a boy who was still wet behind the ears. Young though I was, I had been well taught and was good at what I did. "Mr. Gregory would have asked you the same question that I just did, make no mistake about it," I told the innkeeper. "And I'll tell you something else. If you'd failed to answer, he would have picked up his bag and gone straight home." He glared at me, clearly unaccustomed to being spoken to like that. My dad had taught me to be polite and display good manners, even if the person I was dealing with was rude. So while I stared back without blinking, I kept my expression mild and my tongue still. I waited for him to speak. "A girl died in that room exactly a month ago tomorrow," he said at last. "I employed her in the kitchen, and sometimes, when it got busy, she helped out by serving ale in the bar. She was fit and strong, but one morning she didn't get up, and we found her dead in bed with a terrified expression on her face and blood all down the front of her nightgown. But there was no sign of any wound on her body. Since then, her ghost walks, and I can't let the room, or any of the others for that matter. Even down in the ale room we can hear her pacing back and forth. There should have been a dozen people taking that room by now, with more to come. It's affecting my business badly." "Have you seen her ghost?" I asked, wondering how strong the manifestation was. Some ghosts could only be heard. "There's been no sign of her down here or in the kitchen. The sounds all come from the bedroom, but I've never been in there after dark when she walks, and I wouldn't ask my staff to do so either." I nodded and offered him my best sympathetic expression. "What about the cause of death?" I asked. "What did the doctor have to say?" "He seemed as puzzled as everyone else, but thought it might have been some sort of internal hemorrhage, possibly in her lungs, since she'd coughed up blood." I could tell that the man wasn't convinced by this explanation, and indeed, he continued, "It was the look of horror on her face that made us all uneasy. The doctor said seeing all that blood coming out of her mouth might have terrified her and caused her heart to stop, or she might have carried on bleeding inside. To my way of thinking, he didn't really have any idea why she died." It was strange and horrifying. I had to get to the bottom of the mystery, and I knew the best way to go about it. "Well, hopefully I'll be able to tell you more tomorrow," I replied, "after I've talked to her ghost. What's her name?" "Her name was Miriam," the innkeeper replied. With that, I gave a nod and walked off down the street. Before long, I turned down a passageway that brought me round the back of the inn to the edge of the churchyard I'd seen through the bedroom window. I opened the ornate trellis gate and took the narrow path through the tombstones that brought me past the small church. I needed a walk to stretch my legs and get some fresh air to clear my head. I wanted a bit of time by myself to think about the situation, too. In the county, it usually got chilly after dark, even in summer, but this was a warm night in late August, probably the last of the good weather before autumn cooled the air ready for winter. I came to a slope which offered a spectacular view of a valley. The range of hills in the distance was bathed in moonlight. It was something that cried out to be painted, and it held my attention for a long time. Since John Gregory's death, I'd changed a good deal. I still felt a sense of loss. I really missed him. But along with that, there was also anger. A friend had been taken from me, as well as a master. I now spent most of my days alone, with a lot of time to brood on things, but there was one source of solace. Increasingly, I'd come to appreciate the beauty of the countryside, with its varied landscape of meadows, woods, fells, and marshes. This view at Kirkby Lonsdale was as good as anything I'd seen, if not better.